It is now 8:30. It is time. We are going to have a fun conversation.
We are.
So tune in. And this is obviously an important conversation.
And everybody, let's appreciate Walker being able to jump in here when we were supposed to be in Cleveland, and now we're just sort of pulling a whole program out of our butts.
Hey, we're pretty good at doing that, wouldn't you say?
Clearly.
Wouldn't you say, Walker? We're pretty good at, making moves on the fly, getting things done, and we really appreciate you joining Generational Change for the first time.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
Thanks for having me on. I just make sure my audio is working.
It's a little low.
It's a little low. Wait, is it better now?
Hold on. I was messing with the volume on our end. So
all right, so try it again.
Yeah, me too. Okay, wait. Sorry, my microphone's been a little weird lately. I don't know.
Now it's good right now. It's good right now.
It should be good now. So that's good.
Okay. All right. So this works.
That works.
Okay. Well, look at this. Let's hope that this is not going to be a problem.
Not a great endorsement for my microphone, but
we have our own problems.
We've had our own problems with connections here,
and we
are working our way through it. But that's what happens when you're not working in a multi-million-dollar studio.
And you don't have money.
Yes, that's true. We're skitting by, but we really believe in what we're doing, and so
that's important, especially now.
And of course, I thought it was very important that we have this conversation this evening because pretty much all of what our show is about is really addressing the primary issues that we need to be focused on. There's so much of this infighting, especially when it comes to, the online left, and especially when it comes to a lot of the YouTube channels. Drama gets clicks. Everybody knows that. But even when you attempted to mend the fences, broker
let's have
the
him
peace,
say what he said. Let's have him put out what
we obviously would love to hear your feedback on what your experience has been like, because we've tried and doesn't seem to be as effective as we'd like.
No.
Oh, I don't want to get too much into it. I just I think that when Bernie Sanders lost in 2020, it created sort of a void. And I think a lot of people have rushed to fill that void. And there's a lot of disagreement sort of over the direction that the left will ultimately take. I have my own opinions about where the left should go. Other people have other opinions. But yeah, I think that the infighting online is pretty disheartening.
Yes,
it has been pretty disheartening. And I think and somewhat counterproductive. But yeah, so one of the ways it's been counterproductive is it's sort of taken away from larger conversations about policy. One of those policies in particular, and that would be redistricting reform. A lot of people don't know, but in 14 days, the U.S. Census Bureau is supposed to release census data to the states, and that will allow them to start redrawing their congressional and state legislative districts. Now, that matters because where you're placed in your district determines how much power your vote has for Congress and for your state house. So if you're a diehard Democrat and you're in a solid red district, your vote doesn't really matter all that much, or vice versa. So right now, the Supreme Court has precedent. The precedent is you're allowed to draw those districts to empower one party over another. We can't review it as a court. It's a political question. So that's basically a green light to Congress to act, to say you can't draw districts to empower one party over another. You have to draw them fairly, and so they accurately represent the populations of your state. And so Congress isn't acting. They're out on recess. So you've got a Congress on recess, a precedent that allows for just extreme gerrymandering. And you've got, after 2010, the Republicans gerrymandered control of Congress. They held it until 2018 when the Democrats had a big blue wave in response to Trump. And they've held a majority in the state legislatures ever since. So for a decade, they've held the state legislatures. And so Democrats have this unique opportunity now to fix that. And they should fix it. And the left should be thinking about this, because if the left is going to come to power, it's going to be through this base of voters who typically lean liberal or left and vote for, if that base can't elect candidates in Congress or the state legislatures, it's game over for any issue you care about. I mean, you're in Florida. Climate change is insane.
It is.
But Florida at this point, really, other than how many counties, is basically a red state. It's real. I mean, we're a red state, but like most Democrats in Florida's votes only matter because of how it's gerrymandered. If we were districted properly, there would be probably no blue districts. And that's what's interesting. And as we have a very Republican state legislature, you would wonder why we have any Democrat districts. So like right now, they're getting another opportunity to change that. They're going to get another opportunity to take that away.
So I don't know the specifics on Florida, but nationwide, Republicans gained a palpable advantage in the number of seats just through redistricting alone. And in fact, if everyone voted the same way they voted in 2020, where Democrats won 4 million more votes nationwide, the Republicans will take the House in 2022. Like everyone could still vote exactly how they did in 2020, and the Republicans will still take the House.
What do we do?
Well, you ban partisan redistricting. You pass some legislation to do that. HR 1 or the For the People Act or S1, whatever you want to, however you prefer to call it, that banned partisan gerrymandering. And it had a number of provisions to ensure that redistricting wasn't used to disempower communities of color, that it would be a fair process. Some of those provisions, it's too late to implement, but some of them can still be implemented. There is still time. 14 days. Congress is on recess. I'm hearing from my sources that it's not going to happen. So it's not great. We're not in a great situation. But
no.
While that's going on, it seems like everybody's just throwing barbs at each other, and it's like, please just channel it into this for now, for 2 weeks. Just everything aside, talk about this, call your legislators, show up at their offices, send emails, petition, do all that good stuff, all the things that activists are so good at doing and that we journalists are so good at commenting on from the sidelines. All that stuff.
I'm scrolling this thing across the board. It's at bottom. It's from when we did our Assange telethon, but this is the Capitol switchboard to reach your representative. So if somebody wants to call, you're going to get a recording, you're going to get a voicemail, but you can definitely leave them a message and tell them that this is something that's really important to you.
Yeah, tell them redistricting reform is necessary. Like, even if you take redistricting reform out of HR 1 and just have a clean bill, just the redistricting reform parts, that would be enough. That has to get done. Because once you empower the voting base, I mean, change is slow. People fear change, I think. But you do have a majority in this country that supports policies like Medicare for all. Those numbers are much higher among Democrats than they are among Republicans. So, for people who think this doesn't matter, which base do you want to convince to fight alongside you? Do you, the one that's already convinced, or the one that you have to put more work into when you're already at a disadvantage with how much money is flowing into politics? This is the issue. I've been talking about it for 5 years now, since 2015. It's really important if you're looking for literature. David Daley has a book called Rat Fucked. Can I swear?
I've already said
matter
the
now.
C word on this show.
So
I've already said
doesn't
the
matter
C
now.
word before, so go for it.
Sorry, yeah, the book is called Rat Fucked, and it's great. It's all about how the Republicans orchestrated this procedural coup in 2010, and that was before the Supreme Court really opened the floodgates. I mentioned that the court said that gerrymandering is a political question. We can't do anything about it. That happened in 2019, so we haven't had an election cycle where that precedent has been in place. And then for redistricting, rather, we haven't had a redistricting cycle where that's been in place. And there's another decision that came down, the Shelby County decision, which got rid of preclearance, or it struck down the formula for federal preclearance. For people who don't know, when under the Voting Rights Act of 1965, states with a history, or jurisdictions, not just states, counties, places that had a history of racial discrimination, had to clear with the federal government changes to their election laws, their voting laws. So that included electoral maps. So you had a lot of electoral maps that got struck down by the Supreme Court on just or not the Supreme Court, sorry, struck down under preclearance just on its own. The federal government said you can't do it. And now that formula is gone. Congress has yet to put in a new formula, so preclearance is out. It's no longer applies. So those two decisions work in concert to ensure that what's happening, what will happen now following this census data being released, it's just going to be insane. Like nothing we've ever seen. A historic disempowerment of democratic.
So people aren't at all going to be expecting, like, it's going to hit out, like they're going to see like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
I mean, it's going to be like, it's hard to even imagine how much of a sham democracy we will have at that point. Like, you know, people are already like, oh, we don't really have a democracy here. And they cite things like the Electoral College. That's true. The Senate. That's also true. Money in politics. That's true. But how about when your elected officials get to choose their own voters and decide, you know, how to stay in office? They carve out their own blocks. And that's sort of happening now. It's going to get so much worse.
Right. It is bad now. In some places, it's really bad. And people are aware of it. And most people, when you ask them this, do not like it. Yet most people don't want gerrymandered districts. And when you explain it to them, they definitely aren't supportive of that. It's just that this is so not a sexy topic. And so nobody talks about it because it's really not. It's very unsexy.
I know. It's very technical and it's a little in the weeds, and it's not as easy or sexy to understand as something like Medicare for all. I get that. People are like, how does this affect me? Well, your state legislatures affect you probably more than the federal government at this point.
Ours is just so bad at this point. Like,
right.
I always say this, Florida, we have a very low bar. We had Rick Scott for 8 years. Okay. So like we have a low bar. And I think because of that, it isn't just that it's red and the people are red. It's that our tolerance level for abuse is just such that we don't really notice that stuff because everything's just so filthy corrupt. Like you don't notice it anymore. You know,
that's the danger. We can't let that happen nationwide. It's very easy to watch as just basic pillars of our democracy get chipped away. Every year, it seems we lose something a little more. This really matters. This is a big fucking pillar.
Yeah.
If this falls, we have a decade of ingrained minoritarian rule in this country. And that is really, really scary because that minority party doesn't believe in climate change.
They don't believe in democracy, apparently.
They politicized vaccinations for political reasons. They threw, like, this is not a party that has your best interests at heart. Now, neither party really has your interests at heart. I acknowledge that. But like, it's really bad if voters who believe in climate change cannot elect candidates who at least talk about climate change as a reality. Like, politics will be slow to change. It will, but it has to be able to change. And this will prevent it from being able to change.
Right. This will completely shut out the inside system. Like we talk about working both an inside and an outside strategy. This essentially closes off the inside strategy. And that leaves us pretty impotent, I've got to say. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Well, and we're speaking with Walker Bragman, journalist, has written for Jacobin and The Intercept. What I do think
the Daily Poster, by the way.
The Daily Post.
I know my old moniker was independent journalist. Now I'm with the Daily
All right.
Poster.
Well,
we're going to change.
You're with our buddy David, so we definitely got to update that. And Sirota's done an amazing job. So
he has.
It's really awesome that you guys
I loved having him on.
Being able to do that. The thing that I did want to bring up, which I think is very important, is there is sort of this: what is the best possible strategy? Like, where is the best possible avenue in terms of making that infrastructural change? Now, there is this talk about, well, we have to start a third party, and that's the only way this is going to work. The one thing that I think is a fatal flaw here that nobody is talking about, we don't have to name names. We know who the players are. The point is, they don't talk about what the Tea Party movement actually did to systemically take over the GOP. It wasn't about electing congressional representatives. It was about taking over state and local parties. They got people onto the school board. They got people into the city commission. They got people into precinct committee positions. In fact, the GOP down here, they treat being a precinct committee captain as like the most important position you could have in the GOP. So they really emphasize that infrastructural change that only one state has attempted to do so far. It looks like they're doing a pretty solid job, and that's Nevada. And the question is, can we retrofit that and do it in a whole bunch of other places? It looks like New York is on its way. And that's as good a state as any to really have that infrastructural change. But it seems to me that that's what's getting lost by a lot of people in a lot of other states, recognizing that we already have the tools for us to take over the party systemically. It's just a question of whether or not you're willing to get into the weeds, as you would allude to, and really put in that work, the grunt work that isn't sexy, doesn't get talked about a lot, but it is so vitally important for the changes that we need. And if you are able to systemically take over those areas, then those elected representatives in Congress, they have to answer to you. Otherwise, they will be primaried because the infrastructure will be in place where they'll have nowhere to go. Kind of like Kirsten Sinema in Arizona. It's kind of showing itself right now. What are your thoughts on that?
So that there are efforts to take over state parties, and there are progressives who are thinking institutionally. In Michigan, we did a story about the Michigan Democratic Party. There's a progressive movement there that's been very successful. But I think that that's not to say that it's adequate. We don't have enough. There's not enough institutional thought on the left. I think. There's a tendency to sort of reject whatever the other person is doing. There has to be some solidarity, and we have to think institutionally. You're absolutely right. Running for precinct captain, those positions, those matter. Local politics matters, and it's the most. I would say it's the most productive thing that you can do on an individual level is get involved with your local politics and try to change it. It's very hard. You run up against very strong opposition. My father is a town councilman in my hometown, and just, working to make changes through a democratic machine there that is just very, very entrenched. Like, it's hard. It's going to be hard at every level, but it wouldn't be hard if it weren't worth doing. It is the right battle to be having, because you build power structures, and that's how you bring about progress. I think you raised a really great point. Thank you for raising it.
Absolutely. And as you can imagine, one of the big problems that we do face, and this is much, much different in the Democratic Party than it is in the GOP. And you can see it reflected in the fact that Kevin McCarthy is 55 and Nancy Pelosi is 80. If you go to a lot of the local DEC chapters, and I don't know what it's like in New York, you would obviously be able to speak better on that, but I can tell you down here in Florida, and yeah, it's the assumption that, it's God's waiting room and all that jazz. But I can tell you that of the 3 counties that I've gone to in what you would consider to be Democratic strongholds, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade County, but especially in Broward and Palm Beach County, the age of the precinct volunteers and the people who are there, it's very reflective in somebody like Pelosi. In a way, the party infrastructure looks like the leadership. And I guarantee you, it probably is a similar circumstance in the GOP. The leadership at the local levels are probably a lot younger and a lot more enthusiastic about being involved. Do you notice that that's the case in the current state of the Democratic Party infrastructures overall?
So I can't speak to that as, authoritatively. I can only speak from my personal experience. And I will say that it is the same in my hometown, that the Democratic infrastructure is older. And that is a big problem for Democrats. I think when you are, and in some ways the Democratic Party has a rough go of it, because if you are the party that's supposed to be for working people and for, big climate action and all of these things, when you're the party of, supposed to be the party of FDR, and then you become the party of Reagan, as I think the Democrats have, the COVID response is really Reagan-esque. Leave everything up to the states, put it all on the individual, and then, see
Well,
where
they don't
see what
represent
happens.
labor anymore, so they're pretty Reagan-esque, I suppose.
But yeah, I mean So when you're the party of government and you don't utilize government, people lose faith in you, I think, very quickly. But when you're a party like the Republicans, who are against government, and that's if you had to sum up their message, it's we don't believe in the government. They're doing just fine because they don't have to do anything. They just have to stop things from getting done. It's much easier to dismantle something than it is to build it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And so in a sense, like, it's harder to get people active in the Democratic Party when they have this, I think, 4-decade history of just letting people down, in letting workers down in a really big way. And that's not to say that anybody has done well for America's workers in the last.
no, there is no Labor Party in this country. We don't have one.
Well,
but it makes it very difficult for Democrats, especially because young people are informed. They're active. They're engaged. They believe in big things. They don't have years of cynicism beat into them. They're excited. They want to get stuff done, and they have a bigger imagination for what can be done. And that is a great thing. We really do need to reimagine the role of our federal government in our society. Government can do things. It has very broad powers, and it can be utilized to do good things.
And I got to tell you, it's a great segue, because I know there are people who have their opinion about whether or not Nina Turner should be elected tomorrow. And I can't emphasize enough, we will be there on the ground, with her tomorrow.
I'll be a zombie, mind you.
We will, but we will do everything in our capacity.
Look pretty.
But it's all good. I think this race is immensely important to the movement. I think a lot of people are down right now.
If it weren't, they wouldn't be fighting so hard against her. If they weren't scared, if they didn't think that Nina was a game changer, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
And this is no disrespect.
Very important.
Yep. And this is no disrespect to AOC, but Nina's the one. She is the heir apparent to Bernie's movement. She is the one that I think could really revitalize this movement. And I also think she's the person who will go further than Bernie would in terms of challenging power the way that it needs to be challenged. I think to get her in would obviously take immense pressure off of Alex and a lot of other people who, she has a certain spirit to her, a certain fight to her. I actually was in Philly for the People's Convention in 2016 when she wrapped her arms around Jill Stein. And I said, oh, this is going to play at the convention. And it did. So she really has this forward thinking, take no prisoners type attitude. She does it in a very nice way, encouraging way.
But she takes it a step further than Bernie was ever willing to go in terms of sticking up for herself and fighting back and doing what she needs to do. And also, she doesn't have lifelong ties with her friend Joe Biden. So, she has a slightly different, she hasn't been in there for so many years.
Yeah. And I do think that plays a role as well. And so for people downplaying this race, I think this race is immensely important. And if Nina were to win, I do think it would be the right shot in the arm for the progressives going into 22. What do you think?
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. I think that this is a very important race. And I think that something that gets lost is that every generation of progressives that gets elected, or every subsequent progressive that gets elected, they get a little more emboldened. The people in power, the progressives that are already in, will be a little bolder. They'll speak a little louder. They'll be less afraid to go and stand out on the steps of the Capitol after their own party let the eviction moratorium expire. I mean, think about that. This is huge. It's huge. Like, it might not deliver the eviction moratorium because they still don't have enough power within in the House, and a lot of them are new. So you're not on, you don't have the choice committee seats. But it is important that you have a vocal contingent of elected Democrats who are willing to say our leadership has made a serious mistake. It cannot stand, and we are here to say that it will not stand. That is important. You need that. Nina Turner will add to that. And then progressives who get elected after Nina Turner, that they'll be even louder. Like, I don't want to anoint anyone the heir apparent to Bernie Sanders. I think that it's all of them. It's important. It's all of them.
It's not us. That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah.
It's not one person. It's just the more people that get elected, the louder they'll be. And they might not be perfect. Now, every single one of them might not be 100% aligned with you, but they will pass. If they have the power to do it, they will pass policies that will make your head spin in comparison to what has happened for 4 decades. This is the start of something. It's not the end. It's very important, and redistricting reform is an essential thing to do.
You sound so
right
much
now.
more optimistic than you did this afternoon. So I'm glad to hear.
I had a headache. I took some Advil.
You're alive and well now, brother.
I view Nina as, it isn't one person. It's sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back. At one point, there is going to be that one. I've always said this is like a balance, and there will be that point when it tips. And so we need to keep adding to it and not getting irritated when it doesn't get there exactly and give up on it. It's like, that's the problem with going after them. So to me, so long as they're not on corporate payrolls, then we need to believe that we will inevitably get those people to push the policies we want, because those people are representing people. So
look, call them out when they fuck up. Call them out.
Yeah.
That's how you keep people on track. Don't do this thing where you elect people and then, that's it. But when they, it's not all or nothing. It's not they're entirely on our side or they're not at all on our side. There is it matters. In politics, you don't know who your enemies are going to be today or tomorrow. Who your enemy today might be your friend tomorrow. Look at Peter Dow. Mm-hmm. Peter Dow did a complete 180, and you don't know who your allies are going to be. And
allies are different on different issues.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. And we talk about that all the time. I'll talk to anybody if I think it's going to make things happen that I think are in the best interest of people. We have a Republican group here. I met one of the leaders of that group because he was protesting the drilling in the Everglades, and they believe very much in Everglades restoration. So, and yet, here's the catch, Walker. Here's the best part. So this gentleman, at some point during the last election, we were out at the polls just visiting with people and whatever. And I went up and was talking with him in November at his election. He was running for office. And I got the side eye and crap from the blue team. Oh, I can't believe you would go talk to him. And I'm like, okay, he's somebody who believes in Everglades restoration. What? And besides that, he's a nice guy. So I just happen to like him. But they were so bent out of shape that I would talk to someone on the other team. And I'm like, this is why we can't get stuff done.
My father told me something that I will repeat now. He said that there are, and he got this from somebody he knew, there are good bad guys and there are bad good guys.
It's very true. It's true. And what we're dealing with when we see all this infighting is that. And that's what it looks like. There's points where I'm looking at this and there's no good guy. They're all wrong. And they're all wasting their time and being unproductive. It's not like I pick a team, but everybody loves a team. Everybody loves a team just like everybody loves a villain. And you need to have a villain in order to have your team. And so it's like this tribalism. It's just
outrage porn.
Yeah.
It's outrage porn.
Yeah.
Let me just say to your viewers, I don't give a fuck about what side of what online argument you're in. Please talk about these issues that matter, like redistricting reform. I keep going back to it.
No, it's important.
Matters. It's so important.
So where can people find you? Where are people going to find you?
People can find my work in the Daily Poster, and they can find me on Twitter at Walker Bragman. I've frozen my Patreon account because I'm less able to post on it, so I'm not charging people. I am on Patreon.
That's very noble and stuff. But if your Patreon is where people pay to get your work, even if that's not where the work is, you should still let them make that contribution. Like I have people that I'll spend their money on their Patreon, but they don't post on Patreon. I don't care if that's what they post. I've been a lot busier at work these days, so I don't have time to keep it up, and it felt like anyway.
So it's Walker. So it's Walker Bragman at Twitter.
At Walker Bragman and then the Daily Poster.
At Daily Poster. Poster.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and thanks for talking about stuff that matters. And
We try,
Yeah.
you know what? We really do try. I would say when we started this, it wasn't a live stream show. When we first started this, my idea was long form interviews. And I like to have on people, if I read your book and I think it's interesting, like this is about providing like a library of information on a multitude of issues.
Well, you know what?
I mean, we do have candidates, like we do have candidates like that we'll have on, but we usually like to have a long form interview. So we're really very information heavy.
That's a great point, because one of the guests we're actually having, Walker, and this is like a very good, it shows you the range within which our show goes.
Range.
Yeah. And so we're actually on the same night having two interesting guests. One, we're going to have Carol Roth, who you probably know, just wrote that book about small business. So of course, she's on the political right. But one of the reasons we're having her on is to have that conversation about, well, if you believe in the small business as we do, then you really should be fighting for Medicare for all, because it just makes financial sense at this point to go that route. And then we're going to have on Jacob Allen, who's the VP of the Nevada Dems, to basically tell people all the way on the left, hey, this is one of the ways from an infrastructural standpoint, you can make a difference.
We're going to see the blueprint. But you know what, when we talk to people, the truth is we'll talk to anybody. Again, I'll talk to anybody if they're bringing value and it introduces us to their audience. And that's a really key thing. So like I went on Tim Pool's show. That's not my people. I think I got called Karen 1,000 times in an hour. But yet we got new people. And what if we reached a whole bunch of new people with what we're saying and what we're trying to put out there? That's progress. So I'll talk to anybody, really.
Yeah. And I think that's how we're going to build this coalition. And, we certainly hope that, we'll be able to continue this networking as we go forward. Your work is fantastic. Obviously, David Sirota, starting the Daily Poster was a fantastic idea. It certainly has, anybody who needs to turn to not even necessarily progressive, but just people-powered independent journalism. That's where it's at. And that's what we desperately need. And that's why,
we're going to have an app for it. Soon we're going to have an app that everybody can use. It'll get your independent news right there.
That rocks, man.
What we need.
And unfortunately,
Alex Koch and I we were releasing the beta in September. That's going to be great.
So when will you come back on when that's up and running?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We started a nonprofit. We created this app, and hopefully through Progressive Coders Network, they were the ones who actually built it. They've done a great job. It looks fantastic.
That's awesome.
It's going to be awesome. You're going to be able to get all your favorite stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, we'll definitely have you on to plug it.
Truthfully,
again.
Walker, anytime, like if you have something you want to say, feel free to tell us.
Just like, when it comes especially to journalists, you have an open invitation. Jordan Chariton has an open invitation. The work that you guys do is immensely important.
I want Abby Mark.
I'm in good company.
But
yes.
Abby doesn't come back, respond easily.
But
I want her to be.
Yeah, we'd love to have Abby on again.
I do.
Listen. Like I said, this
coalition's got Max not responding for a while.
Well,
just saying.
Jen knows Max Blumenthal on a personal level, so it's they're busy. They really are. They really are busy. Those are not people that you have to question whether they're really doing work. So with that said, guys, Walker Bragman at the Daily Poster, check out his work. It's really awesome, and we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. We will see you in September, my friend.
Bye, Walker.
Have a good night. And so,
he's so sweet.
That's to me, these are the conversations that I find encouraging. I think it's very important that we do this.
Guys, support the real journalists.
Yeah, for
Please.
real. Yeah, I know we should, we constantly should be talking about how to improve our show, but the truth is we're doing this because we give a damn.
Right, but we're not a news source.
No.
And we don't claim, we're an information source.
Sure.
And I do like to get guests on here and have pretty interesting conversations and get good information. So I won't say we're not a factual information source, but we're not a news source. You know what I mean? Like, guys, follow the journalists, follow the news, understand, take an interest.
No, and I agree. And, we're not going to put it up. But Martha, listen, we totally understand where you're coming from. We have been very vocal about, the issues that we have down here in South Florida.
Absolutely.
This is not a secret. We know that there is a lot of, again, I don't want to go down the road of nefarious, but it's what you call impeding progress. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have. And that's what we're fighting against. But as we alluded to, we really do believe that if we can get Nina Turner over the finish line tomorrow, that is going to be tremendously important to this movement.
Martha, he is the reason why Savage Joy now doesn't like me anymore. And that makes, no, it's annoying.
Yeah.
And he did so by being a dick and then got mad when I called him a dick. And he said, I can't believe you called me a dick.
Well, don't be a dick.
Like a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
So that's sort of the problem with that person.
But on a much...
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.